are Hacker Sect. No gods and no masters. We are spiritual beings, not religious slaves.
We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Hello. This is Identity Denied. In this video we would like to speak about a very controversial subject.
Internet freedom, it's a topic of discussion among politicians here in Washington, D.C., but did you know that the United States has its own global spying system? That's right, a system that can track phone calls, emails, and other communications across the globe. Here to talk about the United States' role in cyber warfare is RT contributor and investigative journalist Wayne Madsen. Wayne, thanks so much for joining me. So first of all, this global spying system is called Echelon, I believe, but there isn't that much information out there about it. What can you tell us about it?
Well, several years ago, the European Parliament took an active look at Echelon. And what Echelon actually is, it's not the name of the actual global system. It's a tasking mechanism to get, there's 5 countries in what's called the UK-USA Signals Intelligence Alliance. This has been active since the end of World War II. This system used to listen on radio broadcasts. Now it's being expanded to cyberspace. And what Echelon actually is, the U.S. National Security Agency, for example, can task the British Government Communications Headquarters, their counterpart, GCHQ, to basically, as we know during the lead up to the Iraq War, they asked GCHQ to do surge processing of the delegations at the UN Security Council that were instrumental in the resolution. So basically it's a tasking mechanism between the United States, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, the 5 countries that make up this UK-USA alliance. So what we're seeing is, it's interesting, the Obama administration says it's in favor of net neutrality, but at the same time we see them making a power grab into cyberspace, most recently with this deal that was worked out between NSA and Google, whereas they're going to be in a cooperative relationship. And they've got these same deals with other high-tech companies in the information technology world.
Well, that's exactly what I was about to ask you. You know, the United States goes around and preaches about internet freedom and kind of talks about China and censorship in a bad way, obviously, yet something like this exists. I mean, how does that work?
Well, what we're seeing, we only have to look at the White House Office of Information Regulatory Affairs. Dr. Cass Sunstein from Harvard Law School is Obama's advisor on this, and he's talking about imposing taxes on internet sites that put out quote-unquote conspiracy theories. He's talking about basically licensing people as you would drive on the highway to basically surf the web, and I think these are very dangerous paths to go down, because how can you talk about net neutrality when in fact what we're seeing is maybe the imposition of multiple layers of access to the internet, which flies in the face of the concept of universal access and net neutrality.
And so is this system spying only on foreigners, or is it also working on U.S. citizens? I mean, how does it work?
Well, historically, the NSA and its partners would spy on abroad, but now we always knew that they were cooperating and spying. For example, we know that the Canadian Communications Security Establishment, CSE, has been used to spy on Americans, and we see similar deals made around the world. But what we're seeing here is an extension of this into cyberspace, and you really can't draw geographical boundaries or borders in cyberspace. So we see a lot of this overlapping into the United States. Patriot Act and its various revisions have allowed basically domestic surveillance. So the old idea that NSA never spies on American or U.S. persons has basically been out the window for an awfully long time.
And I mean, what exactly is the purpose of this? I mean, what kind of communications are they intercepting, or what do they want to intercept, I guess?
Well, the NSA, for example, would say that we're only interested in items of intelligence value, counterintelligence value, counterterrorism value. But we know that in the past, they've They've been looking at members of Congress, for example. We know that they've done that even when back with phone calls, transatlantic phone calls. They've been engaged in commercial espionage on behalf of American companies, including American auto companies, which is very interesting in light of the recent Toyota revelations. So we do know that they have expanded their portfolio and their brief into looking at things that they historically did not have as a high priority. And for example, like I say, political information and other information that does not really have a foreign counterintelligence or counterterrorism value.
And so obviously we're talking about internet freedom, and a big thing that comes up with the United States and internet freedom is China. The recent news of the day, the London Times reported that NATO diplomatic officials said that there is a cyber war going on between China and the United States. What do you make of that? Is there really a cyber war going on here?
I think this is basically trying to impress politicians on Capitol Hill to get money for all these various initiatives. This is the last place we should see an extension of the Cold War into cyberspace. It's going to have a negative impact on all internet users, both those who use it for social issues, political issues, but also commercial users would be impacted negatively by this power grab by the U.S. government into the realm of cyberspace.
Well, Wayne, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always interesting to see what the United States is doing when they're preaching internet freedom.
Expansive spying that American government is doing to us. Now, in the old days, when the government went to the internet companies and asked for all their data, apparently some inside Microsoft, who had to deal with this all the time, had come up with a word for it. It was called hoovering. Now, it seems that it's named after the vacuum because they're hoovering up all of the data from Microsoft and other companies. Well, it turns out that's not what they named it after. They named it after J. Edgar Hoover, who would collect this information on his opponents and then conveniently use it later to blackmail them. Oh, okay. So don't worry, though. That was in the early days of the Bush, and the companies at the time had fought it to some degree, saying, hey, wait a minute, if you're going to do this, you got to get a court order. I can't just voluntarily give you the information, although they did that for 4 years before they asked for court orders, but nonetheless they did. So then Bush and Obama went through a series of steps to quote-unquote legalize it by getting friendly FISA courts to rubber stamp it, some of which refuse to rubber stamp it anyway. Those constitutional issues will come up later in the court system. And some leaders in the Senate and the House, they showed them the information, said you can't say anything about it, and those guys said, oh, okay. And then later they said, ha, you didn't say anything about it. Hi, now it's legal. Okay, we ran it by you. Well, it has now become more formalized. And so Associated Press explains in a terrific story what the NSA called PRISM, the companies knew as a streamlined system that automated and simplified the hoovering from years earlier. So before, they're going to Microsoft and Google and stuff and saying, give me all your data. Now the new system, including PRISM, is like, step aside, Butch. We've made this a very automated system. We just automatically suck it up. We've got the court orders, so there's nothing you can do about it. To some degree, it doesn't absolve the internet companies, but they are under court orders, so it's the government's fault a lot more than it's the internet companies' fault. So now the AP breaks what I think is the most interesting part of this whole NSA spying scandal. They explain interviews with more than a dozen current and former government and technology officials and outside experts show that while PRISM has attracted the recent attention, the program actually is a relatively small part of a much more expansive and intrusive eavesdropping effort. Now remember, PRISM is the one that collects the content of your emails, your web searches, etc. Apparently that's a small part. This is a giant story by the Associated Press, and Associated Press is not a fly-by-night operation, and they are very, very careful in what they print, okay? So they explain, Americans who disapprove of the government reading their emails have more to worry about from a different and larger NSA effort that snatches data as it passes through the fiber optic cables that make up the internet's backbone. So PRISM is when they go to the companies and they say, all right, now give me your data, right? But they don't even need to go to the companies. They go under the water. It's the fiber optic cables, and they go to the backbone of the internet, and hoover up the information in that way. And that's some of the programs we were talking about, whether it's, Nucleon, that's for the phone companies, and Mainway for the phone companies, or Marina and Prism for the internet programs. So it gets worse. Former U.S. officials familiar with the process say it allows the government to keep the information as long as it is labeled as belonging to an American and stored in a special, restricted part of a computer. So they're saying, look, we got the info, but don't worry, we're not using it because it's in a special, restricted area that says American. Now, a lot of times, the American stuff gets into the non-restricted area, and if you're not American, good luck to you. We have all of your emails and web searches, period. They go on to explain, that means Americans' personal emails can live in government computers, but analysts can't access, read, or listen to them unless the emails become relevant to a national security investigation. So they have them, they have our info, American citizens' info. All those things you did online, they have it. They're just saying, for the moment being, we're not going to access them unless it's a national security investigation. Well, the AP explains, well, things can change. The government doesn't automatically delete the data, officials said, because an email or phone conversation that seems innocuous today might be significant a year from now. In other words, hey man, we got the stuff. If we ever suspect you of anything, and look, they now call war on drugs a national security issue. They sometimes call them terrorists. Are you involved in the war on drugs somehow? Did you ever smoke pot? National security investigation. I have everything you've ever done online. I could use it to smear my opponents. I mean really dangerous people that are important to national security. They have all of our stuff online, confirmed by the Associated Press. They're storing it. They haven't used it yet. But as Snowden said, it's just a matter of policy. Next time a president decides he's got a different policy, doesn't matter, he can use it. He'll say, well, it was legal, it was constitutional. Cheney agreed, Obama agreed, all sides agreed. Sad day for you. Now I'm going to take everything you've ever done online and use it as a tool against you. This is how you get Big Brother. And one analyst, Wolf Ruzicka, who is CEO of Eastbank Technologies, put it perfectly. He said, I cannot think of anything outside of a face-to-face conversation that they could not have access to. If this isn't Big Brother, where they've collected all of your phone records and everything you've ever done online and they're storing it somewhere, what's Big Brother? This is exactly what Big Brother means. Welcome to 1984.
NSA. We have learned much over the past week about your absurdly abusive anti-privacy programs at the heart of your massive data collection and intel gathering operations on ordinary citizens. The latest two programs of which, Prism and Blarney, are among the most intrusive to date, far more Orwellian than George himself could have possibly imagined. We stand firm before you today, unafraid, unabashed, and unshaken by these discoveries, and serve to inform you, the tables shall be turned upon you. You have aroused our curiosity. You have established the course that we shall set forth presently. You are they who will soon have to answer for your actions. We are watching. We are coming. We shall move with great resolve, idle no more, to uncover and expose the extent of which you invade the private lives of your everyday citizens and likewise our brothers and sisters around the globe. Collectively humanity as it exists, all in the name of straw men and imagined opponents, designed to keep the people afraid, silenced, compliant, and obedient. You may have fired the opening shot, but rest assured, we shall deliver the final punishing blow. We will expose your transgressions against the people, making the light of day shine upon your dark and sinister deeds, methods, and practices. The time has come. The time is now. The fight you have brought to our doorstep shall be met with equal and opposing force. You bet your ass, you can fucking expect us. Operation Prism, engage.
without you, my friend. And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell